Tonight's broadcast with our news team. My coworker Nate with the weather, and I myself will be covering the sports in the main broadcast. One of the main things we're going to be covering is the indirect conflicts with the Soviet Union. We've had high tensions with them ever since the end of World War II regarding the diplomatic relations in Europe. As you know, after the war, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt met with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and the Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin, and they were discussing the actions that will happen with Poland and the rest of recently made free countries in Europe. It's just made world history with the 1980s Olympics. We just beat the Soviet Union 3-4. We just made history. As many of you know, the United Nations were created in 1945. It has a very, very hard set idea of what the international peace should look like. But we have differing views from democracy in the Western Hemisphere and communism in the Eastern. This made it quite difficult for the UN to achieve their ultimate promise. And here is vocab in the news. Containment, a policy put into place to keep communism in their own geographical location during or after the following of World War II. President Truman came up with his own idea of political policy. This will be called the Truman Doctrine, and this will cease the military trade and the economic trade with Greece or Turkey. The Marshall Plan, made by George W. Marshall, would pretty much force the entire Eastern Hemisphere to bring together one decision and discuss a drawing up of the new economical ideas and plans for Europe after World War II. After this short break, we will talk to you on how the Cold War is affecting our other countries in the West and the Southwest, such as Asia, Europe, and I think that's it. So, be back after the break.
Weather station here. Sunny 75, a slight breeze coming from the south, and 41% chance of rain coming in the evening.
I'm back. So we're going to be covering how the Cold War affected Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America using one of these modern-day textbooks. So North Korea and South Korea are split along the 38th parallel, North being communist and the South being a republic. The 38th parallel, or the border between North and South Korea, is considered one of the most highly militarized borders in the world. There are constant guards at both ends trying to stop the northern communists from getting into the southern republic. This keeps the domino theory from taking full effect. The domino theory, which is going to be considered our word in the news today, the domino theory is the ideology that if one country falls to communism, the rest, the surrounding, will fall also. Moving on, we get to the early war in Vietnam, which is, at the same time, another war was unfolding in Indochina. We'll cover that at some other time. So, Vietnam. It is split along the 17th parallel, with Ho Chi Minh holding the power in the north and the anti-communist government holding the power in the south. You can see where there would be issues falling between these two. And during all of this, you can look at the United States providing military aid to the South Vietnamese government for the idea that we don't want communists to spread because it would be detrimental to the rest of the world. So the United States is providing help, and later we'll see that the United States actually has a direct conflict with the Vietnamese. So then we move on to the Cold War in Latin America. Latin America was controlled by Fidel Castro, mainly in Cuba. Fidel Castro came in and overthrew a long-standing dictator that in Cuba had complete control over all the people's minds. Fidel Castro was looked at almost as savior until he later then became very supportive to the Soviet Union's ideas for economics and military support. After that, he started receiving support from the military, or from the Soviet Union, and then the U.S. invades at the Bay of Pigs. So I will come back, I will talk to you guys later, and then we'll talk about how the Cold War was affecting the United States.
Have fun with the new and improved Nerf guns.
Welcome back to our fourth and final section for tonight's evening broadcast. During the Great Depression in America, many people, tens of thousands of Americans, decided to join with the Communist Party, which was looked at as an illegal organization by the United States. After this, it led to many civil liberties being cut in or infringed upon because of the Red Scare. The Red Scare was that if communism came to the United States, that many people we would pretty much have another civil war to fight against and to bring back our liberties that we fought for back during the American Revolution. During a lot of this, we had many different committees come along. We had Truman's Loyalty Program and the HUAC. Truman's Loyalty Program was to weave out any thoughts of tyranny or more fighting for freedom, which, if you look at the United States as a whole, we're a free country compared to many of the other surrounding. Then we get to the Red Scare. The Red Scare was where many people in the United States during the Cold War would think that communism and spies and all of these other different things would come through and affect how the United States would act. One of the cases of spies and everything was Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were a husband and wife who held radical views and were accused of passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union. We also have incidents with Alger Hiss, who left the government's, like, being a high-ranking member, and had the fear that there would be attempts to arise to share and distribute our ideas and our secrets to the communist regime. We also had the scare in Hollywood. In Hollywood, there were quite a few big-name actors that would be looked at as supporting the communist regime just from their radical views. This led to a lot of people being put on trial, and very many people would be looked at and doubted upon. And I can actually show you a picture of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. Here's the couple sitting outside of what appears to be a jail cell. Good evening, America. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and enjoy your free America. Good night.